All right, in this video we're going to talk about dividing decimals. So I have a division problem and I've written it two different ways. I have 2.76 or 2 76/100 divided by 25. The first number is the number that goes under the division bar. So this is how we would write this problem in this form. Now, the first thing we need to do when we divide by decimals is look at the divisor. If there's no decimal in the divisor, you're ready to go. In this case, there is no decimal in the divisor, so we are ready to go. I'm going to take my decimal and bring it straight up. I always bring my decimal up first because I want to make sure I don't forget about my decimal. 25 cannot go into 2, but 25 can go into 27 one time. So I put the 25 there, I subtract and get 2, bring down the 6. 25 cannot go into, 25 can go into 26 one time, and we have a remainder of 1. Now, with the decimal, we don't write remainder 1. We keep going. Remember, 2.76 is the same as 2.760, 2.76 nothing. So we're just going to add a 0, and we're going to bring it down. 25 cannot go into 10. So we have to write a 0, and we are going to extend our problem and keep going. We're going to add our 0 because, again, 2.76 nothing is the same thing. Remember, when we add zeros to decimals, it doesn't change the value. So we're going to bring that down. 25 goes into 100 4 times. And so now, finally, we're done with our problem. We have no remainder. So our answer is 0.1104. We had to add a lot of zeros that time. You won't always have to add zeros when you divide by decimals, but sometimes you will. Okay, this time we're going to do another problem. In this problem, instead of having the decimal in the dividend, we're going to have it in the divisor. So we're going to do 180 divided by 1.6. So here's your problem. Remember, the first digit is the one that goes under the division bar. So here's our division bar. The first one goes under. 180 divided by 1.6. Now you'll notice we have a decimal point in our divisor. We cannot start dividing yet. We have to get rid of it. We're going to multiply it by 10. We're going to move it one place over. If we move this decimal, we have to move it here. There is no decimal. Remember, 180 is the same thing as 180.0. It's the same thing. So we can just pretend that decimal was there. 180 is the same thing as 180.0. Since we moved this decimal one place, we need to move this decimal one place. Our decimal is now right there. So I'm going to bring that decimal up. I always want to bring my decimal up first thing. I'm going to erase that because I've already done my moving. And that is now my new problem. It's exactly the same value. It's going to give me the exact same answer. I'm now ready to solve it because I no longer have a decimal here. 16 cannot go into 1, but 16 can go into 18 one time. That leaves me with 2 left, and I bring down the 0. 16 goes into 20 one time. With 4 left, I bring down my 0. 16 goes into 40 2 times, that's 32, and I have a remainder of 8. I can't have a remainder, so I'm going to add a decimal and bring it down. 16 goes into 80. How many times? We're going to have to just guess to try it. Let's try some things. So 16 times what? I'm just going to guess 5. It's a middle number, and I can use that to see if I should guess a higher number or a lower number based on our answer. So I'm just going to guess a 5 to start with. 16 times 5. Oh, that was actually a very good guess. It's exactly right. So it goes in there 5 times, and I no longer have a remainder, so I'm now done. My answer is 112.5. Make sure that when you do this, you are very careful with where you move your decimal to. Let's do one more example like that. This time we're going to have a decimal in both the divisor and in the dividend. So we're going to do 10.6 divided by 0.05. This is our problem. So again, remember the first number goes under the division bar. It's really important that you always put the first number under the division bar. We're dividing it by 0.05. So step 1, look and see if there's a decimal in the divisor. There is. We can't start dividing yet. We have to get rid of the decimal. So let's see how we can do it. We need to move it 2 places to get rid of it. See, we were here. We have to move it past the 0 and past the 5. We need to move it 2 places. We have to move this one 2 places too. So we're here. I move it 1 place. There's no second place. Remember that you can always add zeros to the end of decimals. It doesn't change the value. Let's pretend there was another 0 there. It doesn't change the value. So now I can move it 1, 2 places. That's where the decimal is going to go. So I'm going to bring the decimal straight up. That way I don't forget about it. I've now moved my decimal. And this one here, I've moved it. So now it's just plain 5. Because when I get 005, that's 5. So 5 cannot go into 1, but it can go into 10 2 times. And I bring down my 6. 5 goes into 6 1 time. And I bring down my 0. 5 goes into 10 2 times. And I'm done. 212 point nothing. 212 point nothing is exactly the same thing as 212. So that's my answer. Notice that I always have a digit or an X, a marker, on top of each number in my problem. When you go back and check, you should see something written above each number in your problem too. It's a way to check and make sure that your decimal's in the right place, that you didn't forget to put a 0 on top, something like that. It's a good quick check. So, steps for dividing. Number 1, make sure there's no decimal in your divisor. If there is, move it over. And remember, if you move it here, you have to move it there. So step 1, get your decimal out of your divisor. Step 2, put your decimal at the top before you start dividing. Step 3, divide. You should have something written on top of every number. If you end up with the remainder, add a 0 and keep going. All right, have fun with dividing with decimals.